I was looking at my sketchbook from last year and came upon this painting of the sky. It's cute, for sure. I like the color palette, I like the lighting, but the clouds themselves, they look hella dense. Like, clouds are supposed to be soft, and even in a scene like this where the clouds are taking over the sky, it should convey the feeling of a soft blankets, not lumpy pieces of fat like these clouds seem to be. They're just way too dense. I was new to painting at the time, and I did the best that I could. Not that I improved that much in painting, honestly, the last couple of months I haven't been painting that much, and I thought this was the week to get back into it. I got this new paint set that I wanted to try out for a while, and now I had an excuse to try it out. So, I decided I was going to spend the week making beautiful cloud paintings. Or, so I thought. Dun dun dun. So I started day one pretty enthusiastic. I was excited about what I could do. I found this image of the sky on Pinterest. I started with the gradients background. From the jump, I was already kind of having trouble with spreading the paint across the page. This new palette markets itself as a watercolor / gouache set, so I thought adding water would just be my solution. You'll see that that's going to be the theme for most of the video. So after I put down my main colors, I was just blending. And then I let that background dry. As I waited, I found this tutorial on how to paint a cloud on Pinterest. I found it pretty helpful because it made me understand that the clouds are really made up of shadows. I was really struggling with how to capture clouds because they're barely there. How could I capture a ghost, I thought. Building up shadows was actually pretty helpful and a good strategy to paint clouds, and maybe everything. So that is what I took into my sky painting. I have to say, I really like how these clouds turned out, especially on the top of the page. The contrast between the pinks and the blues, gorgeous. But I did really struggle with layering and blending. There were some parts that looked really good, but others that looked like a muddy mess. Just so gross looking, especially in the middle there. I really didn't understand what I was doing wrong and why some areas were turning out really well and some were turning out really gross. I needed to investigate exactly what I was doing with my blending and layering, so I decided to try the same sky again. With this sky painting, I used more water. Again, it's a watercolor set. More water will make it blend great. I found with my first attempt at the sky, the background was too streaky. So I thought adding more water could help it become a better gradient. Oh, how I was mistaken. This attempt was a disaster. I added so much water that the paint was getting everywhere, and it kind of had a mind of its own, and I was struggling to control it. Also, the color was fading because there was so much water. As it dried up, there were watermarks everywhere. And of course, blending the colors together made this kind of like shit stains everywhere. I was flailing around in this attempt. I was trying to save it. I wanted to keep on blending because I thought blending will make the situation better, but I was blending it into a disaster. So I changed my mission for the week. I needed to understand the fundamentals of painting, how to blend, how to layer, how to make my colors more vibrant. First attempt. I was still under the impression that water will be my savior, as in adding more water to the situation will make the paint act right. It was fun to see the color spread for sure. Isn't this beautiful? But the end result was faded and depressing. So with my second attempt, I wanted to improve the colors and just make them more vibrant. I chose to use less water, which was helpful in that the colors were more vibrant, but it was harder to move around. It was kind of streaky. Part of my obstacle with this challenge was to try to understand the paints and how much water they really needed so I could get the perfect combination of not so streaky and not that hard to move around paint, but also have the vibrancy of the colors. I was finally realizing that adding water was making the colors more faded. Blending was a little more difficult because the paints weren't moving that much because, there wasn't a lot of water. But as I went back and forth between the two colors, the gradient looks pretty decent. The blending didn't muddy up the painting. I really liked it. So my first two attempts were colors that weren't that different from one another. I wanted to try blending colors that were completely different, and in this first attempt, I used the blue and orange. This first attempt of blending two different colors didn't end up so pretty. The blue was muddying up the orange. I was using water to try to fade out the blue, so as I went down I just kept on adding more water to fade the blue so I could more easily mix and be cohesive with the orange. It didn't end up that great, but I found one strategy later on was instead of using water to fade out one color, maybe I could slowly add white and the new color together. So that's what I kind of went with my attempt with the blue and the pink. But I found that mixing colors, specifically white, to fade the colors into each other is a better strategy. In this case, I started with an intense blue color and kept adding more white to the blue until I got to pretty much a white color. I did the same with the pink and moved the other direction. I liked how this attempt turned out. Okay, so after starting to understand how to blend, I felt like I was getting a bit too formulaic and I wanted to have more fun. I wanted the sky to feel more organic. I wanted to also use more than two colors because having more than two colors just added a lot more visual interest. trying to blend different colors together. It definitely took work. I pretty much did 3 of the same exact sky to try to get the blending perfect. But with these attempts, I started to understand what I was doing wrong. Like, I understood that there's such thing as blending too much, especially with this second attempt on this page. It looked pretty good until I kept on blending it. Sometimes I realized it's okay to go good enough. I didn't want to work the paint too much. I also learned that I didn't have to be so precise with my brush strokes. Just having a couple of them as they blend into each other is all I needed. At least that's a style that I like the most. So with this practice, I was finally feeling comfortable with how to blend and how to layer colors on top of each other. And I learned how to work with these paints. I felt a bit more confident and I wanted to try to make some cloud paintings.